Have you ever wondered what it truly means to be a duke, an earl, or a baron? These titles might sound like something out of a fairy tale, but for centuries, they were at the very heart of British society and government. These noble ranks weren't just for show, they were once the backbone of how Great Britain was run, shaping the country's laws, culture, and even its landscape. Imagine the monarch as the CEO of a vast kingdom, but even a king or queen couldn't rule alone. They needed trusted nobles to govern distant lands, lead armies into battle, collect taxes, and keep order across the realm. This entire system is known as the peerage, a carefully structured hierarchy of noble ranks, each with its own privileges and duties. The word peer comes from Latin, meaning equal, because all peers, regardless of their specific title, had the right to be judged by their fellow nobles in the House of Lords, rather than by commoners. The peerage was an exclusive club, reserved for the elite. Membership brought immense privileges, but also heavy responsibilities. Nobles managed vast estates, provided soldiers for the king's wars, enforced royal laws, and worked to keep the peace in their regions. Their lives were a delicate balancing act. Loyalty to the crown was essential, but so was maintaining their own power and influence. A single misstep or falling out of favor with the monarch could mean losing everything: lands, titles, and even their lives. Today, the role of the nobility has changed dramatically. The House of Lords has been reformed, and most hereditary peers no longer have the power to make laws. Their influence is now mostly symbolic, representing tradition rather than authority. Yet, these ancient titles still connect families to a fascinating past. Many noble families continue to live in ancestral castles, preserving centuries of history, art, and culture within their walls. The peerage is like a living fossil, a window into the power dynamics, traditions, and stories that shaped Britain. It's a tale of privilege, duty, ambition, and the enduring legacy of history. King is a royal title given to a male monarch. A king is an absolute monarch if he holds unrestricted governmental power or exercises full sovereignty over a nation. Conversely, he is a constitutional monarch if his power is restrained by fixed laws. In a monarchy, the title of queen refers to a female monarch, the sovereign ruler of a kingdom. She can either be a queen regnant, meaning she reigns in her own right, or a queen consort, the wife of a reigning king. The queen regnant is the highest-ranking individual in the royal family and holds the power to grant titles. A prince is a male ruler, ranked below a king, grand prince, and grand duke, or a male member of a monarch's or former monarch's family. Prince is also a title of nobility, often highest, often hereditary, in some European states. The female equivalent is a princess. In a monarchical system, princess is a title of nobility, typically held by a female member of the royal family, often a daughter or granddaughter of the monarch. It can also refer to a female ruler of a principality. The male equivalent is prince. While often associated with royalty, the title can also be given to the wife of a prince or the daughter of a monarch. A princess is most commonly a daughter or granddaughter of the reigning monarch. In some cases, a princess may be the female ruler of a principality, a territory ruled by a prince or princess. A woman who marries a prince, the son or grandson of a monarch, may also be referred to as a princess. While the title of Princess Royal is reserved for the eldest daughter of the reigning monarch, it is not automatically passed down. In the British monarchy, princess is typically used for daughters and granddaughters of the sovereign. While princess is strongly associated with royalty, it can also be used in other contexts, such as in fictional or literary works. For example, Zara Tindall, daughter of Princess Anne, does not hold the title of princess. At the very top of the noble pyramid, just beneath the royal family itself, stands the Duke, a figure of immense historical significance and prestige. Duke is the president and CEO. For centuries, dukes have been symbols of power, wealth, and influence, shaping the course of British history from their grand estates and imposing castles. The title Duke, derived from the Latin word for leader, was first officially granted in 1337 to the king's eldest son, marking the beginning of a new era in English nobility. This title was not just honorary, it signified real authority and responsibility. Dukes were once the wealthiest landowners in the realm, commanding vast territories, collecting rents, and raising private armies to defend their lands or support the crown in times of war. They served as powerful regional governors, indispensable to the monarch for maintaining order, but also potential rivals, sometimes challenging royal authority in pursuit of their own ambitions. A duke outranks all other non-royal nobles, such as marquesses, earls, and barons, and enjoys a uniquely close connection to the sovereign, often serving as trusted advisors or military commanders. The Duke of Norfolk, for example, holds the prestigious role of organizing major state ceremonies, including coronations and royal funerals, a tradition that continues to this day. In the modern era, dukes have adapted to changing times, becoming heritage managers who oversee the preservation and operation of historic estates, transforming them into thriving businesses and cultural landmarks. Only a handful of non-royal dukedoms remain today, such as the Duke of Westminster and the Duke of Richmond, each with their own storied past and enduring influence. While their direct political power has faded, the legacy of the dukes lives on through centuries-old traditions, family crests, and the magnificent homes that attract visitors from around the world. Today, dukes are the custodians of Britain's grandest houses and the keepers of stories that span generations, ensuring that the grandeur and history of the past remain alive for future generations to discover. Between duke and earl is the marquess, a rare and mysterious title. The word comes from Old French, ruler of a border territory, or march. Mar means war. Marquess is Secretary of Defense. Marquesses were border lords defending the kingdom's frontiers. The title was introduced in 1385 but met resistance and remained rare. Marquesses had special legal powers to act quickly in dangerous regions. Their authority was based on military readiness, not just land. Today, the title is honorary, with few marquessates left. The Marquess of Bath, for example, manages Longleat House and its safari park. Modern marquesses focus on heritage, tourism, and conservation. The title is a reminder of Britain's once perilous borders. The Earl is one of England's oldest noble ranks, predating the Norman conquest. The word comes from Old English, a chieftain ruling on the king's behalf. Earls are government earls governed large areas called earldoms, acting as chief administrators and military leaders. After the Normans, the title count was introduced, but earl remained uniquely English. Traditionally, earls were tied to specific counties like the Earl of Warwick. Their power was land-based and their loyalty crucial for stability. Today, the link to counties is nominal. The Earl of Wessex doesn't govern Wessex. Modern earls, like Earl Spencer, preserve family estates and history. The title echoes Anglo-Saxon and Viking roots, connecting to the origins of English aristocracy. Earls are living links to Britain's ancient past. Next, we come to the Viscount and the Baron, who together form the broader base of the British nobility. These ranks, while not as exalted as dukes or earls, have played crucial roles in the history and governance of the realm. The title of Viscount comes from the Latin term meaning deputy count. Originally, a viscount was a county administrator, responsible for managing lands and upholding the law on behalf of higher nobles. Over time, the position evolved. In 1440, the title became a formal peerage rank, fitting neatly between the earl and the baron in the hierarchy. Viscounts were considered senior nobles, but they typically held less land and wielded less power than earls. Still, their influence was significant, especially in local governance and administration. They often managed important estates and served as trusted advisors to the crown, bridging the gap between the higher and lower ranks of nobility. Barons, on the other hand, are the oldest and most common rank in the peerage. The word baron comes from a term meaning freeman or warrior, reflecting their origins as powerful landholders and military leaders. After the Norman conquest, barons held land directly from the king and were required to provide knights and soldiers for the royal army, making them indispensable to the feudal system. Their power was primarily local, as they governed villages and towns, administered justice, and collected taxes. This made them the backbone of medieval society and governance. Barons are perhaps most famous for their role in 1215, when they united to force King John to sign the Magna Carta, a landmark document that limited royal authority and established the principle of rule by law. In modern times, most life peers appointed to the House of Lords are given the title of Baron or Baroness, continuing this ancient tradition in a contemporary setting. These noble titles serve as a living link to the deep and complex history of British governance, reminding us of the enduring legacy of the peerage system. Viscounts and barons remain essential to the story of the peerage, their titles echoing through centuries of British history and tradition. Beyond the 5 ranks, you'll hear Lord and Lady, courtesy titles, not peerage ranks. Lord is used for any peer, from baron to duke, and lady for their wives or women with titles. These words come from Old English meaning breadkeeper and breadmaker, reflecting responsibility. Sons and daughters of peers use these titles as a sign of family status, not legal power. For example, Lord Peter Wimsey or Lady Mary Crawley. These are social courtesies, not seats in the House of Lords. In the context of British nobility, lord is a title of nobility, often used as a generic term for a peer of the realm, particularly those below the rank of duke. It can also be a courtesy title, used for the sons of dukes and marquesses, or refer to individuals holding a lordship of a manor. Historically, lord also denoted a feudal superior, or a person with authority and power. In the UK, lord is a common term for peers, which include dukes, marquesses, earls, viscounts, and barons. Younger sons of dukes and marquesses are often given the courtesy title lord before their given name. This title refers to the owner of a manor, a historical unit of land ownership, and is a property title. In the feudal system, lord signified a feudal superior or one who held land directly from the crown. Lord can also be used as an honorific, similar to sir, or as a general term for someone in a position of authority. For example, the heir apparent to a peerage may be styled as lord surname or lord title, according to Quora. The wife of a lord, whether a peer or courtesy title holder, is typically addressed as lady. In the context of British nobility, lady is a title or courtesy title used to address women of noble rank or those holding certain honorary titles. It's the female equivalent of lord and can refer to the wife of a peer, like a lord, baronet, or knight, or the daughters of dukes, marquesses, and earls. It can also be used for women holding specific orders of chivalry, such as ladies of the Order of the Garter. Lady is used for the wife of a peer, like a baron, viscount, earl, marquess, or duke, a baronet, or a knight. The daughters of dukes, marquesses, and earls are given the courtesy title lady before their first name and surname. For example, Lady Diana Spencer. Lady is also used for women who are members of certain chivalric orders, like the Order of the Garter. While lady can be used as a general term of address for any woman in the context of nobility, it signifies a specific rank or position. Esquire, once a knight in training, now means a gentleman or professional man. It's rarely used today but echoes the medieval hierarchy. These titles show how language preserves the legacy of nobility. They're reminders of a world built on status and service. In modern legal contexts, Esquire, often abbreviated as ESQ, is a courtesy title used by lawyers, signifying they are licensed to practice law. While it originated in medieval times referring to a noble rank below a knight, it has evolved to denote a professional status, particularly within the legal field. The title is not mandatory but is a common way for lawyers to convey their professional standing. Esquire denoted a young nobleman training to become a knight. The title extended to those considered part of the gentry, but below the rank of knight. Evolution to legal profession. In the United States, lawyers adopted Esquire to distinguish themselves as legal professionals. It is a courtesy title appended to a lawyer's name, such as John Smith, ESQ. Lawyers are not legally required to use the title, but it is a common practice. It indicates that the individual is licensed to practice law and can represent clients in legal matters. The British peerage is a relic of feudal power and inherited status. Not all nations followed this path. The United States, for example, rejected noble titles entirely. The Constitution's Title of Nobility clause forbids granting such titles. America's founders wanted a society based on merit, not birthright. No dukes or barons, just citizens, equal before the law. Instead of a House of Lords, the U.S. has an elected Senate. Power flows from the people, not a monarch. America still has elites, but no official titles. The peerage is now ceremonial in Britain, a colorful part of heritage. These two systems reflect different answers to how societies recognize status and power. In titles of nobility, a knight is generally the lowest rank, often granted for service to a monarch or nation, and can be considered an honorary title rather than a hereditary one. While it doesn't automatically confer nobility, it can be a stepping stone to higher ranks. Knighthoods are often bestowed for military service, but can also be awarded for other contributions like public service or charitable work. In many systems, especially in the British and European traditions, knight is the most junior rank of nobility or knighthood. Knighthood is often an honorary title bestowed for life by a monarch or head of state, not necessarily hereditary like other noble titles. While knights are often considered part of the nobility, the title itself doesn't automatically confer nobility. especially in the context of systems where nobility is more strictly defined. Knighthoods are typically awarded for service to the monarch, nation, or church, often in a military capacity, but also for other achievements. In the UK, knighthoods are awarded for outstanding contributions to various fields, such as David Attenborough's knighthood for his work in natural history and broadcasting, according to Britannica. Some knightly titles, like those of the Topani noble houses, can be hereditary, while others, like those in the British system, are not. In some systems, a knighthood can be a stepping stone to higher noble ranks, such as baron or higher, through service or wealth. The phrase Paramount Power in the context of the British Empire specifically refers to the British Crown's supreme authority over the Indian states during colonial rule. It wasn't about a general paramountcy of the entire British government in all aspects, but rather its dominance over the Indian princely states through. The British established numerous agreements and treaties with the Indian states, which often stipulated the British Crown's overriding authority. The British military, particularly the East India Company's army, played a crucial role in asserting and maintaining this authority. The British exerted significant influence over the internal affairs of the Indian states, including defense and foreign policy, without necessarily having direct legal rights over those states. This paramountcy meant that while the Indian rulers retained a degree of autonomy in internal matters, their external affairs and ultimate authority rested with the British Crown. It was a cornerstone of British colonial rule in India. However, the term paramount government isn't a widely recognized description of the British government as a whole. While Britain was a global power, especially in the 19th century, its influence varied and was based on a combination of factors, including Britain's early industrialization gave it an economic and military edge. The Royal Navy was the most powerful navy in the world, allowing Britain to protect its trade routes and project power globally. The British Empire was vast, providing resources, markets, and strategic advantages. Britain used treaties, trade policies, and alliances to maintain its influence. In summary, the term paramount government is primarily associated with the British Crown's authority over the Indian princely states during the colonial period, based on treaties, military dominance, and influential relationships. It is not a general description of the British government's position in all matters globally. In the context of titles of nobility, sovereign refers to the supreme ruler, typically a monarch, who holds ultimate authority and power within a kingdom or state. It signifies that they are not subject to any higher earthly authority. Sovereigns can be kings, queens, emperors, or other rulers with supreme power. A sovereign is the highest authority in a nation or state, holding ultimate power and decision-making ability. This power is typically hereditary, meaning it is passed down through a royal family. While the term sovereign is not always a specific title like king or emperor, it can be used to describe the position of any supreme ruler, regardless of their specific title. Examples include kings and queens in monarchies, emperors in empires, and grand dukes or duchesses in grand duchies. Importantly, sovereign is not a title of nobility in the same way that duke, marquess, or count are. It describes the position of the ruler, while nobility titles are granted to individuals within the ruling structure. In many monarchies, the sovereign is considered the fount of honor, meaning they are the source of all titles of nobility and other honors. In a legal context, sovereign typically refers to a government or state that holds supreme power within its territory and is independent from external interference. It implies the authority to make and enforce laws, including the right to engage in international relations and to take private property for public use, eminent domain. The concept of above the law generally refers to a situation where the sovereign is not subject to the laws they create. This can be viewed in two ways: sovereign immunity, where the government itself, the sovereign, cannot be sued without its consent, and the idea of a sovereign power, where the sovereign is the ultimate source of law and not bound by it. This is a common law doctrine that protects the government from being sued without its consent. It stems from the idea that the sovereign, the government, is the source of law, and therefore cannot be held accountable under the same laws it creates. In the US, both federal and state governments have sovereign immunity, though it can be waived, meaning the government agrees to be sued, in certain circumstances. This refers to the concept of the sovereign as the ultimate authority within a state, holding supreme and independent power. In political theory, sovereignty implies the ability to make laws, change existing laws, and enforce those laws without external interference. Historically, this has sometimes been interpreted as the sovereign being above the law, as they are the source of the law itself. While sovereign immunity is a well-established legal concept, the idea of a sovereign being completely above the law is not universally accepted and is often debated in political philosophy. Even when a government has sovereign immunity, it is still subject to certain legal limitations and restrictions, and its actions can be challenged through various legal and political means. The term sovereign citizen is used to describe a movement of people who believe they are not subject to the laws of the government, often misinterpreting or rejecting legal documentation and government authority. They often believe they can opt out of the legal system by filing specific documents.